Greetings, humans, and welcome to Lead Human. I'm Tim Spengler, along with my co-host, the futurist and prolific author, Mr. Jack Myers.
Hey, Tim.
Hello. We are together part of the Acast Creator Network, and each week in about 30 minutes or so, we aim to prove that despite all of the attention about data, dashboards, and AI, that the real competitive advantage in business today is less about managing the machine and still about unleashing the human potential. Welcome to Lead Human. Jack, big week last week. I was in Cannes. You were in London.
I was in London, 96-degree record-setting temperatures in France, where you were, and in London, where I was for London Climate Action Week.
Yeah, we grinned and bared it, and we were lucky to be there. I think maybe a couple takeaways, and I want to get your take on it. I'll give my takeaways and give us some thoughts and then tell us about London before we bring on our guest for this week. I thought three main takeaways besides it was really, really hot on the Croisette. The first one is that the creators are kind of eating the Croisette. My first clue to that was on the flight over. It was a direct flight from New York to Nice. And on the flight over, and I've done that flight many times, I think there were more creators sitting around me than there were executives. The look and feel of these people told me, it told me they weren't going to be taking a Google meeting to talk about performance analytics.
Were they a lot younger, Tim?
They were mostly younger, but they were flashier. The eyebrows were longer. The sweatsuits were louder. The bodies were more interesting.
Doing Instagram selfies from the plane.
Yeah, exactly. There were some of those as well. And so I'm like, huh. And then you got there and it was really the case. Here's an interesting one. I didn't hear the word palais said more than 5 times in an entire week, Jack.
That's been something that's bothered me every time I went to Cannes, which, I'm not doing now, but that's an issue.
So the whole thing started, I think there's like 6 phases of the way I captured it is like 6 phases of Cannes. It started as the Cannes Lions advertising awards, and that golden lion is what everybody wants to win.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. And all the clients went and all the creative agencies went. And it was done. The awards were given out in the Palais. So it was all about the Palais. That was it. And I didn't hear the word palais said less than 5 times in an entire week, talking to hundreds of people.
People don't even have passes.
No one has. I mean, unless you're shortlisted, there's no way you have a pass. I think it was, and Jack, you and I talked about this at one point during the week. Started with the award winners, the creative award winners. And then all the media folks started to say, hey, our clients are all down there. They're our client too. Let's go hang out. And then the platforms joined phase 3. Phase 4, the traditional media, as you reminded me, kind of said, we got to be there too. So they kind of caught up. That was what I'll call phase 4. Then ad tech took over. The entire yachts are all, about ad tech on the beach as well. Platforms, ad tech, some traditional companies. And then in the last couple of years.
Interesting. So it went from the brands being there to accept their awards, the agencies following, the media, the platforms, the Google and Facebook at the pre-Meta, and they all went, and then the legacy companies followed. And now it's a creator economy. So it's like 2 different events. You got the Palais with the awards, and then you've got the Croisette with the beach and the wow.
Yeah, and the Palais
not
small.
Surprising. It's kind of a bummer though that the young media people who are there are not getting exposed to the creative side of the industry.
Well, yeah, interesting. And 2/3 of the power of marketing in virtually every study ever done was not about what you and I did or do. It was about the creative. Right? And so
is this a full circle back to content with the creators there now?
Well, that is content. I mean, look, my kids would rather hear what Drewski thinks about a product than George Clooney. And that is a problem to me personally, but that is where we are. So, I think now the word is attention. So the creator is obviously drawing attention. Brands are still looking to get attention in a crowded marketplace with their consumers, right? So that's
maybe
attention.
we should recommend to Phil Thomas at the Lions to begin giving creator awards, get them back into the Palais.
That's such a good idea. I can't believe that no one's thought of that. I like that one. Well played. So this attention economy, creators, but brands, also us walking around with our pitch and our wares, and lots more complexity. Here's my third point: is the complexity. So many more companies, so many more startups, so many more in this digital-based world of communications now, which
are a lot of them in the messy middle of, between the buyer and the seller, the tech that's managing the buy-sell process, the system.
A lot of it, but not all of it. And some are going to really be interesting solves for the complexity, and some won't be. I think I felt that we were all, while in the heat and bitching about it, we were all curious. I mean, people are taking meetings with companies no one's ever heard of because no one wants to miss out on something that really can help them solve these problems. And so, of complexity. So
my favorite LinkedIn comment coming out of Cannes was from Nick Manning, who's kind of a legendary media professional in London,
right?
Who I actually met with when I was in London last week. Great guy, but his LinkedIn comment was, "I'm exhausted from the Cannes Lions, and I wasn't even there." Just from all the social media.
Yeah, well, we did that. I didn't do any commentary. I just put up the picture. A CEO of Cross MediaWorks, founder CEO Cameron Oscar, had a couple great comments that I just thought I would share. I really liked them. One was, we should smile more. And the reason I bring that up is because I got called out while I didn't see somebody. Then I get a text 30 seconds later. Just walk past you. Smile.
Wow.
Okay. You're right.
Wow. Okay, that's a personal note.
Yeah. Exactly. You're right. I think, he was mentioning the personal connections are really important, and they are. They are. What are you up to? How can we help each other? What can I learn from you? Maybe I need someone in that area. I just, you come back when you go to Cannes, you have your planned things, but you do come back with takeaways, to-dos, follow-ups. They're really great. He said something interesting also about AI being everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. A little play on that, the movie.
I like that.
And right, that was for us. And also that, AI should enable a strategy. AI isn't the strategy. You should have a strategy and let AI then enable it.
In the same context, AI is the data, it's the analysis, but it's not the judgment, it's not the discernment of what you do and how you build relationships. Because at the end of the day, Tim, we're lead human. We're all about relationships and how, in an age of increasing technology-driven, data-led media advertising organizations, how ultimately it's the human relationships that are going to make a difference between those that are successful and those that are less successful.
Totally agree. So, and you talk about making a difference. I'll use that as a segue. So you were in London. Tell us about that.
I'll take it. Yeah, I had some really interesting meetings during London Climate Week, London Climate Action Week. Record-setting temperatures really helped reinforce the importance of the message. A lot of what I noted was how passionate people were about their purpose. Their careers were built on why they were there, was built on purpose, whether it was agriculture, whether it was health. It all came back to that central argument that unless we fix the climate issues, the environmental issues, we're just going to continue to be experiencing deeper and deeper realities as we're seeing around the world. And that you experienced in Cannes with your record-setting heat as well. Sustainability is something that when you think about climate, you think about in London and in Paris and in cities that are 300, 400 years old, the infrastructures are not sustainable. You were seeing the same thing in the global south where the climate is making such dramatic changes in every part of the civilization and how their existence is being defined for the future. Tim, it was really interesting to be in London during Climate Action Week.
I'll bet. I've got one question for you before we get to our guest. So you've got all these people gathered with this passion, this purpose to talk about this topic, and it's 96 degrees in London. Are there people in the audience who are pushing back on this notion that we need to be focusing on this? Are there people there calling this whole thing BS?
Not there, but that's a great question. You know, I was there primarily. My wife is a co-founder of Project Dandelion, and Project Dandelion co-founder Mary Robinson, the former president of Ireland, Pat Mitchell, former president of PBS, and Hafsat Abiola from Nigeria. And Mary Robinson, I asked her the question of what her experience is around the pushback that exists in not just in climate, but Project Dandelion is also a gender-focused organization, building global marketing to bring more attention to climate, as female-led climate initiatives, which are having significant impact on solutions. She said the pushback, those who are pushing back are being more empowered than ever before. And that's creating headwinds where there should be tailwinds. So it's a great question, Tim.
So it's happening, but it's behind the scenes, not in front of everyone's face. No one stands up and calls bullshit on this.
Well, I think people are standing up and addressing the pushback and how we act. But these are people who are so passionate that they keep pushing forward. They're going to keep pushing back against those headwinds. They're just going to push more forcefully. So, you know, and that's a great segue to introducing Darshana Myronidis, who has spent her whole career helping organizations, you know, navigate that complex intersection. You talked about complexity in the climate category. There's huge complexity, you know, as you navigate business performance, companies who are less willing to put their brand around purpose-led initiatives, you know, at the same time needing to be stewards of the environment and have social responsibility. So Darsh is particularly interesting guest to have right now. She has a master's degree in sustainable development. She served in senior sustainability leadership roles, including global director of sustainability for Virgin. She really understands the challenges, Tim, that a lot of us and those we work with every day are challenging, balancing the short-term pressures with the long-term outcomes.
Sure.
And one of the things we'll hear throughout this episode that I really want to call out is her insistence that sustainability is not someone else's responsibility with the title. It belongs to all of us.
No pushback here. Let's go to Jack and Darsh in the ACAST studios in London.
Darsh, thank you for joining us on Lead Human.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Great to see you.
So Tim, Darsh and I were just together in Stockholm at the EY, a Nordic Summit, the Spring Summit, where climate was a primary conversation. And on stage and in the audience, we're both wearing our dandelion pins from Project Dandelion. Normally, Darsh, we would start with kind of a question about being human and what does it mean to you, but I'd really appreciate any takeaways you might have had in that are kind of human related and the human story related that you're taking away from the EY Summit.
Gosh, I think there's so many. I think one of the things to consider, especially, you know, as we're on the Lead Human podcast, it's really that this is a personal journey for a lot of people. And climate change in terms of everyone's personal actions is something that everybody has agency to address. And I think something that came out of the EY Spring Summit was the fact that, you know, time is short. we all have the agency to be able to make a change. We really do need to lean on each other and collaborate more, which I think is also something that Project Dandelion does tie in. So it was one of those moments where everybody met and thought, actually, we have all of the tools and all the solutions, and we just need to now put our heads together.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the context of how you do define yourself, you're unique in many ways. You're a South African Indian woman. That's very much part of your identity. How does that experience that you've had being in the corporate world, how do you view both inclusion and exclusion through that prism?
Gosh, what a really good question. I think my identity tied to my South Africanness is almost, there's a little bit of a South African superpower in South Africans. There's something in the struggle and the challenges we had as a nation that actually makes us little mini fighters and resilient people. And in that, I hold that with pride, specifically because being South African means that this position that I'm in and what I've chosen as my vocation in terms of, sustainability, long-term resilience, climate change, responsible business, is just so tied into the DNA of what South Africa went through and who South Africans are. So I think in that way, and I don't even know if I've answered your question properly, but it's just a feeling and a movement, I think, that is silently there. And how I bring it into my day-to-day and into my role is from an inclusion lens. It means that I see other people and want to lift others up, especially those from an ethnically diverse lens, especially those in females who I don't actually see in the room as often as I am. Mm-hmm. And from an exclusion perspective, I think I look at things with the lens that, we're not all going to be around forever. And we want to hand over the baton to the next. We want to actually think about how we can impart our knowledge. And I am in spaces where exclusion still exists, but I think I ignore it and I just keep going.
That's not what I expected. Do you find that you're ignoring it gives you comfort or makes you, how do you feel internally that you feel the need to ignore?
That's lessons learned in life in terms of what challenges and what fight do you want to have. Mm-hmm. Sustainability professionals, pushing uphill that sort of long-term business case of what sustainability is, especially with the corporate lens. I mean, I feel like it's a little easier from a philanthropic point of view. You're speaking to the converted. Here, you're trying to convert. There's things that I innately, and this is also a female lens, that you get on with things. And, you can't change every situation you're in. So you make the situation work for yourself. But by the same yardstick, I think that I will choose the right fight at the right time for my own inner voice. And that's what I'm learning as I get more mature, that it'll come at the right time, that I don't sacrifice my own needs and myself, my own value. But that voice then is almost a case of, it might come in an opportunity of how do I see that situation and help others out of it?
Interesting.
Versus myself right now.
You stepped up on that one. That was very valuable.
Thank you.
Wisdom, not just experience, wisdom there. And I was actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, so I think it's a perfect follow-up from what you just said. And you talked at the beginning about the agency that people have the ability to take. And then you just mentioned about the uphill push. And in the mission you're in, people listening to this have their own uphill push. It may not be as big of a mountain or as big of an issue, but they have a goal and they're trying to communicate that goal and create the change that they want to create in whatever their business situation is. 500 people, 3 people, whatever the issue is, work from home, or we're going to pivot this, or we're going to talk about how you articulate a vision and then are selling change, particularly when in the case, and I love that you said the uphill, because it's like when it's not like one meeting and we made the change, we're going to make the change. We're going to make it happen in a meeting. When the change you're trying to sell is inevitably going to take a while. So maybe break down the steps so everyone can be better when they have their own version of this.
I love the fact that you use the word sell, because I often say that I'm half a politician, half a salesperson in terms of what I do. There was something I was thinking about when I knew I was coming on here, which was, it's so sad. We heard from some really amazing people this week, and it's so sad that we actually have to sell this positive story of what sustainability is or how to solve for climate change. And in rooms that I'm in right now, in my own case as well, you've had to think about, who's the audience? What's the value proposition? How do you break down the information and simplify it in a way that your audience believes in your journey? They can see the journey. They want to be a part of it. They want to take it up for themselves to give themselves their own agency. But in that, we're also in a world right now with social media, with AI, with everything else, where I feel like there's the style over substance. And I myself am searching for more of a substance in meaning in what we currently are doing and what we're selling. Mm-hmm. And the advisory I can give is that you are on this journey. This sustainability is a constant wave. You're going to be popular and unpopular so many times over the years that you choose to do this. But if you can actually think about your long-term purpose, whether that's for a business and tied to a business's identity, or for yourself in terms of what you want to see and change, I think those steps means that in there you will figure out, okay, who's the audience that I'm talking to? And you, right now in the world that we're in, I feel like you have to play into the hands of that audience. You have to be a sustainability person and have this grounding of the science, but learn the brand techniques and the marketing of how to sell your message. And in that, I think it's constantly asking us to be a jack of all trades and master of none. And that's okay. I think that there's somebody that I work with a lot, Solitaire Townsend, who wrote an amazing book called The Solutionists. And the solutionists actually say that if you want a systemic approach and you want to solve some of the problems of the world, think like someone who's in sustainability. Because you have to almost be really malleable to try to solve for some of these problems and be really innovative in how you think.
So understand who the audience is.
Understand who the audience is and what you're trying to sell.
And come at it a couple different ways and be persistent, because it's not going to happen in one conversation.
It's not going to happen in one conversation, but that's okay, because you'll have small wins along the way. Right? This is an opportunity and innovation, and it's a moment of opportunity when the world is sleeping, when the world thinks that we are reverting back. You have the opportunity to go forward.
Right. What about from a cultural standpoint? Do you see different patterns in different people or regions that are other wisdom you can impart?
I think culture is so interesting, because your business culture could be so strong that everybody doesn't question, what needs to be done next. And that can also cause some of its own problems. But behavior change is a huge part of sustainability, right? And I think in different regions, and in some like South Africa, like you're seeing in the global South, they are living the experiences that people talk about in books and that we put on PowerPoint presentations for the future. Mm-hmm. And so your lived experience actually determines how quickly you're going to act on some of the sustainability issues and how you're going to move forward in terms of where you're going to put your money. So in some areas like Cape Town, you're reaching day zero on water. And this is the second or third time, we're getting there. Those are huge systemic issues. And at the same time, it's a country that is investing heavily in AI data centers, which use a lot of water. So it depends on your lens of where you're currently sitting from a geographical point of view. your access to money and funding towards what you need to get done. But I'd also say in that, I see the opportunity that actually there's a lot of doors open. And it might be closed where you're sitting, but it might be open elsewhere. And it's up to you to try and find it and connect the dots in terms of a solution.
So let's continue on that point of it's up to you to connect the dots. So many of our audience, the word sustainability is not in their job description, as it is in yours. It's not in, maybe not even in their corporate purpose or focus or priority. How do you speak to people, and what is the message to each individual who may care about sustainability, even those who may not be able to define what it means? So perhaps start with that. But how do you communicate to every individual in our audience what their opportunity is to relate to and engage in the work that you're doing?
Well, I think, first of all, when you think about sustainability as a definition, it is really about leaving something better for the next generation. And that's a people issue. And right now, when you think about, one, sustainability does suffer from a branding issue. It's just a funny term. If we were called innovation, we would have gotten more money. If we were called research and development, people would just be, helping at all points in time. So I think it's almost a case of actually everybody is doing it already. From a human perspective and an individual perspective, it leads back to your values. So it might be that, for you, it's thinking about your own family unit and thinking about actually what do you need in your life. And that might be access to nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be safe travel and experiences. And Tim, it might be for you in terms of your generational family and thinking about actually how do you want to leave the world for them? So I feel like we've termed the word the sort of action that we take sustainability, and we make it a team or a person's job. And we make it, if someone always feels like somebody else is going to solve it. But if you actually take it upon yourself to say that, for me in my town, for my family, what can I do? That becomes about your everyday. And it's, okay, can I recycle more in my life? Could I drive an electric car? And at the moment, it actually makes financial sense too. Can I be part of the solution in a small way, either through a community? And that could be from a human perspective, reaching out to people to do walks in nature, try and help with the loneliness pandemic that's happening in the world. There's so many different threads through. So I think it's figuring out for you what your lens is and getting back into your own spirit and grounding to say, how can I actually help? And the title of Lead Human is Unleashing the Human Potential. I think we're just at the precipice of what that is. And we take it in a very, whatever's sold to us right now, people feel like our human potential is whatever AI is going to deliver. But the human potential is actually the humanity that makes us soft and empathetic and feeling. And I think that's the beauty of how you can actually choose to see the world.
Beautiful. Were you born in this way? When did this sense of self and everything around you, what triggered that? When did that happen? When were you aware? When were you aware of this?
Gosh, this sounds like a therapy session now.
No, I don't mean it that way.
I'm just joking.
It's amazing.
No, thank you. I often say, it's a funny thing where I go into meetings and places and I introduce myself with, this is who I am and this is my job title. And recently I started saying, actually, if I was introducing myself to you, Jack, for the first time, and sorry, Tim, you're not in the room, but I was be like, hi, I'm Darsh. I'm South African Indian. I have 2 lovely teenagers and I'm a very messy person in my personal life. And you'd automatically get a sense of who I am just by me introducing myself like that. But I come from a huge family. And having to sort of think about my 200 plus family in South Africa, lots of different like people, noise, conversation, conflict. I think to survive in like a huge family, you almost have to have a little bit of a lens. And there's this thought that I've been thinking about that I started considering, which is being at the kitchen table is a lot like being at the corporate boardroom table.
Oh, I like this one.
People bring their childhood selves to work. They bring their conflict and their thoughts and their processes from whatever background they've had into the office. And how we interact on conflict, how we have discussions, it all sort of plays out in different ways. And so when I look at the two different sides of my life, of where I grew up and how I grew up and where I'm currently in my career, there's so many similarities. So no, I think I'm a work in progress and I'm constantly learning. I'm so direct in my normal life, especially when it comes to a task. I can sometimes come across as really blunt. And that for me has been a huge learning curve. Actually, how do I want to come across? What do I want to say in that moment? The South African in me says, oh man, and this is like how a South African talk, we don't have time. Just get on with it. And that's such a normal thing to say. And everyone would be like, great, got it. It depends on your context as well of who I'm talking to. So it's, I think it's a lot of great people around me to coach. I invest in myself with executive coaching and learning and just thinking about how to do things in different ways.
You like to talk about that you love to go to markets all around the world. And it's not that you go there necessarily to shop, I've read, but that you go there because you love to look at the people, watch the people, see how the culture, see how they live. What are the common threads that you find that you think relate to the work you're doing?
I mean, I think I could people watch anywhere, which probably should be part of my daytime job. Look, I think the common thread is that everyone is innately the same, right? The person that you are at home with your family, the person that when everyone's not, who you are when everyone's not watching. I think those similarities are there. I start to talk to people about, what do you love to eat? I love talking about, and I love asking people the question of, for Thanksgiving, what is that dish that your family makes? And when I ask that question to people, it is, I love sweet potato with marshmallows on it, or I love green beans, how my mom makes it. And everyone's story leads back to their mom. And it's about, well, my mom makes this in this way, and that's what I love.
What's your favorite dish?
Well, so I haven't experienced Thanksgiving in a proper way. I have once in San Francisco.
I was a little surprised to hear the
pie.
Thanksgiving, the pumpkin pie.
The pumpkin pie really had me because it doesn't exist in an Indian context. You'd have a pumpkin curry. But the sweetness of the pumpkin pie I loved, and that taste I loved. So I did go through a few pumpkin pies. I am a sweet person. In a way that I approach people watching and understanding people and getting to know people, in a personal way, that all throws together the fact that no matter where we're from or what we eat or what our traditions are, there's just these human things that will always bring us together. It's the fact that we all love our mum's food, no matter what. Mine's my mum's curry. It's the fact that we all get around the table and, there's togetherness. And I think we forget that. I think we forget that in the world we're in right now. But I feel like we're chasing something that is out there, untouchable, and it's spinning everybody around a little.
Darsh, I want to get your perspective on this. I'm coming back to the being around the kitchen table is like being around the boardroom table. So I'm going to come back because that's so good. Give us your perspective on being around the kitchen table, the nature versus nurture of the dynamics that play out around the kitchen table. So I want to get your understanding of that, and then I want to think about how we might translate some of that to when we're around people in the boardroom or the work table. But like, what do you think about that? So 200-person family, where are you in the birth order of your small family, your direct family, and then the whole thing?
Yeah. My direct family is I'm the middle child. I'm the only daughter. I am very feisty for an Indian family. I've always been told that I'm cheeky, and it's almost as in I'm too bossy for even the men in the family. It's so interesting. We have a joke in our family because my original surname is Patel. And that is, and my dad grew up as farmers, and they had, 6 brothers and 1 sister. And it was you put the food down on the table, and it was whoever was quickest got there first and finished up.
I'm getting that. Right.
There's a thing in the Patel family. It's a known thing. And I think my cousins, when they hear this, will laugh, is it's almost a case of, well, watch it when you're with the Patels because the food's not going to last. Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody really eats quickly. It's as if everything's just, going to be done, and they get up and they go. And it's just so normal. There's something in the hurriedness, the sort of grab for things that I can sense in the corporate world. Everybody is there with their own job descriptions, but there's also always a grab for attention, for upskilling themselves or getting themselves onto an agenda. There's sometimes overlapping grabs for projects and things. And when you start to look at it, you start to think, okay, so if I was looking at you as I did my family, what do you want out of the situation that's driving your own either insecurity or way of behaving in the situation? And then how do I react to that knowing this and watching you? I feel like there's such an overlap there. And I think when you take that kitchen table to boardroom table type of analogy, sometimes families can seem so chaotic. Everyone has family conflicts. Everybody has an aunt or a cousin they may not like, they don't talk to any longer. And you find that in the corporate world. And then at the boardroom table, you think, well, I've got your number, and you have a boundary around yourself. You choose to engage in a different way. I think if you look at it in that way, that everyone becomes really human. And it's almost a case of, okay, I'm going to bring my best authentic self to like a situation. I absolutely am so annoying in so many contexts to my brothers as well as to my colleagues. And that's okay. I'm so direct. I expect others to be direct back to me and just say, oh, Darsh, you're annoying. I'll be like, oh, I know.
I've also experienced you laugh pretty easily too, so you have a good sense of humor.
It comes with 2 brothers. Absolutely comes with 2 brothers. They made me very resilient in life to actually laugh at yourself and not take everything too seriously. And my dad always says when one door closes, 5 others open. And he's got this outlook on life. He's 80, he still works. He's got this outlook on life on everything will work out for however it's meant to be. So you can't sweat the small stuff. Mm-hmm. That's taken me, Tim. Don't mind sharing, I'm 47 this year. That's taken me 47 years to learn. Yeah. Because I always wanted the quick win before. I wanted the quick solution. I wanted to know where I'm going to land and how that gets there. And in stepping back and learning to step back and think, actually, I trust myself in this path enough for it to lead me to wherever I need to be. It's taken a lot to let go.
Tim, we've heard so many takeaways, so much advice, so many recommendations. I have like kind of my one big takeaway that I'll share, and then maybe you'll share one. Mine, Tim, and unless there's something we missed, Darsh, that we didn't cover that's important to you that you want to share before we wrap up.
I think it's a moment in time for everybody to think, what do I want from life? And what can I give back to actually make a real change? And I think if I implore you to sort of take that time to understand yourself enough so that you could actually tap into that, that would be the beauty of who a human becomes next and what humanity can do next.
And how we lead human. My takeaway of many that I think is important to repeat came very early in the conversation. It relates to what you just said about the inner self, listening to your inner self, pick your battles, pick the ones that I guess you can win, but also that best serve you, who you are and who you want to be in your inner self. That was very meaningful to me.
Thank you.
Tim?
I think I doubled down on it, the kitchen table to the boardroom, and think about that as you're in the boardroom or in the kitchen or when you're in the kitchen table. I guess both is really, really smart. And I love the way you ended with, think about your life and how you want to give back too. What a great mic drop. I think that's another great mic drop, because who shouldn't look in the mirror and be doing that? We all have to. Thank you so much for being here, Darsh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to thank the audience now for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this, these pearls of wisdom. And if you did, please share and tell other people about it so they can learn from this conversation as well. And help us now with Darsh on this mission to lead human, because we believe that unleashing the human potential is really what we're here to talk about. And we're proud to be doing that. And this has been Lead Human.